Major scales are great. If you follow the prescription from the previous video and you play up through your major scales one position at a time, you will learn a lot about the instrument, way more than your peers. But also, a major scale is kind of limited. It's not how real music works. Real music jumps distances as opposed to always playing the next note, the next note, the next note within the scale. So in order to manufacture this musicality, what we can do is something called sequencing scales. And with a scale sequence, what you're doing is you're putting on top of a scale pattern, a fretboard pattern, you're creating a number pattern that sits on top of that and tells you which of those notes within the scale diagram to play in which order. And this allows us to add complexity to major scales. So instead of playing everything ascending in order or descending in order, you can play with larger interval jumps and still be playing the notes in a scale and inside of a position. So to keep it really simple and to illustrate the idea, we'll go back to that open major scale that everybody learns. What that is, if we were to count the scale tones that are in there, we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1, right? Those are the scale degrees, how far into the scale we are. And we use those for theory stuff. If you're not familiar with that, check out street theory. When we sequence, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a number pattern. And what I wanna start with is 1, 2, 3. We'll be playing in threes because it's easy to comprehend, it's easy to see. You play 1, 2, 3. And for your second note, you start that 1, 2, 3 pattern from the second note of the scale. So you'd play 1, 2, 3, and then start on D, our next note in the scale. And you go 1, 2, 3, and then you start on the next note of the scale, E if we're stepping up. 1, 2, 3, and then the next note. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, back to 1 on the higher octave. The 1, 2, 3 thing is practical for saying it out loud like this, but if you need an alternate window on it, we can name specifically each of the scale tones. And this might help some people to visualize what we're doing. You could think of it like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 1, 7, 1, 2, 1. And so that's the pattern that we're going to be working through. And if you register for the mini course, you get the handout packet, and there will be tabs detailing this specific section, because this is the hardest thing to get your head around when you're just learning the idea of sequencing the scales. So 1, 2, 3, that is the place to begin. Okay, so one more time, I'll walk you through it really slow with this open scale, and then I'll show you how you would apply this to a position and then work it through the positions that we've talked about in the past. So from C, you would play C, D, E, and then the next note in the scale is D. C, D, right? If you play the open major scale in order, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that is the pattern we're following. We're adding 3 notes to each of those in the ascending standard do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do pattern. So we're adding 3 notes to each scale tone. So on C, we're adding 3, 1, 2, 3. And then from D, we're adding 3, D, E, F. And then from E, 1, 2, 3, F, F, G, A. Okay, so one more time and I'll go extra slow. So C, D, E. And then D, D, E, F, and then E, E, F, G, and then F, F, G, A, G, A, B, and then A, B, C, B, B, C, D, and then back to C to finish it off. The thing about threes is that in addition to breaking up the scale and giving us some forced interval jumps in there, it also will teach us technique if you play it correctly. And the threes give us a triplet feel. So it's gonna be odd. right? We're playing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what will be tempting is to play that's tempting to do, where you leave a rest in there so that the pattern becomes 4. 1, 2, 3, rest, 1, 2, 3, rest, 1, 2, 3, rest. But technically, if you can get to the point where you're playing just straight 3s and you play 1, 1, 1, 1, it gives a rolling feel, and technique-wise, you'll be building that. It's silly to me to go to the effort of learning this stuff and not take advantage of as much technique as you can build on the way. If you're gonna throw the stone at the bird, you might as well try and kill 2 birds with the 1 stone, right? It's the old saying. So for this particular exercise, be mindful that if you keep the 3s even, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, where the first note is landing is going to alternate and move around the beat if you were to count it. But also it's teaching you the feel of emphasizing on the triplet. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because the emphasis is built in because you're changing your start note from each one of those places. So you're thinking more specifically about the start note, and that by practicing those 3s with a specific start note, you're internalizing that triplet sound and that triplet rhythm. Okay, so to take this up a notch, we're going to implement it on our positions. Let's move to a different key, so we're not just playing in C, because hopefully you will take this and play each of these exercises through all 12 keys. It's a lot of material and a lot of work, and if you're just watching these videos back to back to back, that's fine, but go back. If you really want to know this stuff, you have to do the work. This is not a hand-holding video series. I'm telling you what you need to do to really get familiar with this stuff. And these scale sequences, this is what I really attribute to my comfort on the ukulele fretboard, right? So if you look at me and you say, well, I want to be able to do that, I'm telling you, this is how you get to that place of comfort, being able to play around. This is what I feel has done that for me. So it's a lot of material and you have to do the work, but this is like the framework for that. And then from the framework, you have to implement it on all 12 of the scales and in each of the positions all the way up the fretboard. So let's play an A. We'll go to the key of A. So if you want to look up an A scale diagram, that's great. Pause the video. If not, I'll walk you through it. But from A in the first position. And as you play through different keys in different positions, you're going to start to notice patterns and notice that, oh, this A scale that I play here, that pattern that I'm playing there, it's the same as the C scale up here. And so your fingers, if you do this enough, your fingers are going to start to learn that pattern. And before you know it, you're not even going to need to really think about what the note is. Your fingers just go there because you've played it enough times that the pattern is within your muscle memory. And if you're in the key of A and you just want to shred and make something up and rip a melody or something, the information is baked into your fingers because you spent all this time practicing. That's why you do this. So first position, A major scale, but we're going to play it in 3s. Okay? So from the A major scale, if you were to look at a diagram, you notice that within our fingers here, we have most of the notes. I think there's one reach in here that we need to get, but we're going to be playing starting on a G sharp, first fret of the top string. G sharp, A, B. That's our first 3. And this is kind of tricky on your ears because you are not necessarily starting from the root. To get started, spend as much time as you need with that C pattern where you're playing 1, 2, 3 up from each of the notes on the simple C pattern so that you can visualize it very specifically, because taking it to a position is very much a different sort of experience. You have to think a lot harder to make this work. But the concept is exactly the same. So we have 1, 2, 3 on the G sharp, A, B. And then from there, our next note after G sharp is the 7 in the key of A. So the next note you would play is A. So we'll be starting from the 1 in this case. So you'd be playing A, B, C sharp. And then from there, we would start from the second note, B, C sharp, D, okay? And right there, your ear says, well, what's that? That D doesn't sound quite right. That's not maybe what your ear was expecting. And that's because you started on a strange note. And this is gonna happen. This is where, if you wanna get really theory technical about it, you could think of these as modes, because you're kind of starting on one note and maybe ending on that note in a different place, but spanning the notes of a specific scale. If I play the notes in the key of C, all the natural notes, but I start them on a D and I end them on a D, I'm actually playing in a different mode. And so from each of the tones of a scale, there's a mode. This is not important for what we're doing, but each of those modes has a different sound. And so by starting on a random note from within the scale, you might find that your ear says, I don't know. So you got to be really careful that you are referencing the correct diagram and being honest with yourself of which notes are right. And the more you play this stuff, the more you're going to get used to what it's supposed to sound like and how the patterns roll, because they definitely have their own kind of attitude. And as soon as you play something out of line or out of whack, your ear's going to go, wait, what's that? Go back and fix that. So that's what we're hearing, is we're starting on the G sharp. It sounds kind of funny, but we got to push through because we know that D is in the key of A and we're playing in the key of A. So B, C sharp, D, and then we go C sharp, D, E, and then from D, D, E, F sharp, and then E, F sharp, G sharp, honoring my position fingerings, right, all the way through this. It would be easier to play it a different way, but I'm sticking to my guns. I'm forcing my fingers to play it the hard way. And then we have F sharp, G, and the A, we need to reach. I'll reach with my pinky. F sharp, G sharp, A, and then G sharp, A, B, C sharp, and then if you want to go up and back, you could go B, C sharp, D, C sharp, or something like that. It doesn't really sound as good when you're not landing back on the root note, in this case the A. So you could just stop on the C sharp. From this position, that's upwards. From this position, we can also do the same pattern downwards. Okay? So within our first position, if we start on C sharp, we would work downwards. C sharp, B, A. That's our 1, 2, 3 going down. C sharp, B, A, and then B, A, G sharp, and then A, G sharp, F sharp, G sharp, F sharp, E, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, D, C sharp, B, C sharp, B, A, G sharp. All right, it doesn't sound like much there because it's going so slow, but when you put it with a pattern, and whatever you choose to do on the end, but it becomes this rolling sort of a thing that you work through and your ear will get used to the pattern. So going backwards, you're doing the same exact thing as you went upwards, you're just coming down through it in reverse. So from there, you would take that and you could work it up through the next position. Whether or not you need to play from every single fret is sort of debatable. If you want to be extremely thorough and you really, really want to master the fretboard and be able to not think about a thing, it's all internalized, it's all been practiced already, play from every fret position. But if you want to be a little bit more lax with yourself, a little bit more casual about it, what you could do is you try and catch the main areas, the main zones where scales tend to work. So like this That position works pretty well. I could maybe go to like the 4th fret. And find the next place that the A scale kind of works. And you would overlap with your highest notes. So the notes that happen under your pinky finger, you would start with your index finger from those locations. And that way you're overlapping a little bit and kind of you're getting like, I don't know, a third of the information, but still covering the same amount of ground. You're still getting used to playing those notes, playing all of the notes within that scale on the fretboard and learning where they live and how to use them musically by jumping through the sequence. But you're not necessarily forcing yourself to play it with every single fingering mutation. Because if I go from the 1st position to the 2nd position, a lot of the notes are going to be the same. Most of the notes are going to be in the same location. All I'm doing is I'm forcing myself to finger in a new way. So this is one of those things where you have the knowledge of the fretboard paired with the muscle memory, paired with the technique. And so if you want to kill as many birds at once with the same stone, then by all means, go through every single position all the way up as high as you can until you run out of fretboard space. That would be the ideal way to do it. And it seems like a huge ask from this perspective where you're just learning a pattern like this. It seems insurmountable. But once you learn what the pattern is and your ear kind of gets used to da 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 da, and you start working your way through that, it gets to the point where you could run through that whole sequence of playing in a key, whatever key, not necessarily the key of A, but a certain key. You could probably do that in a couple of minutes tops, and you just work your way through it, and then you go on with your day. And that's like your musical vitamins. If I'm going to sit down and practice something because I want to be a more technical, better player, this is the kind of thing I practice. To me, this is like taking your multivitamin in the morning. Gives you the oomph that you need as a musician to really get around the instrument, and it can be expanded upon to be as advanced as you could possibly need. From here, you would play that 3 sequence from every position. Okay, and I'll run through this so you can see what's going on here, and I'll play it slow, but I'm not necessarily going to explain exactly what I'm doing. But what we had was from G sharp in the 1st position and 3s going up. Whatever it is there, I cheated on the open string, but then you would go downwards in reverse. And then you would shift up 1 fret to a new position and try and find the same thing again. And then downwards. And then next position. And from here, you got to decide which notes are you losing, which ones are you gaining. So it's going to be a reach on the D. So like this one's really in between, and I have to think about this, and this is great. This is exactly what you want. If you're not struggling when you practice, I mean, don't struggle too much, but if you're not at least challenged when you practice, that means you're practicing things that are too easy. So I should probably spend more time doing this. This fingering is super weird. I cheated there. That one is like all stretches in order to get everything that's in the middle. So And some of it might be clunky. You might have to stop and think about it. The idea is to be as smooth as possible and on average to play at a pace where you can consistently play it perfectly. But if you have to hiccup a little bit and think about it, what you don't want to do is like stop and think about every note, or every other note. You got to stop and think and stop and think and stop and think. You want to be able to move through it at a pace that is pushing your comfort zone a little bit, but not so fast that you can't achieve it. However, if you do get a little hiccup, that's okay. You just start fresh. This is practice, right? You want to practice it as cleanly as possible, and you have the time to redo it. Okay, so that's from the 3rd fret. I'll do two more examples from the key of A. So we'll go up to the 4th position now, in 3s going upwards. Oh, I have that one here. And then from the 5th position. This is another really weird one. Right? And that's the reason you play in every single position, is because by struggling through that wonky fingering, that is not something you're probably ever going to gravitate to play something easily. If you can play it the hard way, then everything else is a piece of cake. So by forcing yourself to work through every position, some positions are going to be really easy, some are super hard. That was a really weird one, starting from the 5th position in the key of A. But by finding those and working through them, you're going to just get nothing but better and better and better. So you do that from every position in all 12 keys. Ready, set, go. If you haven't already, please join the mini-series liveukulele.com/fretboard, and you will get access to the download packet where you will have tab examples of this stuff and also a practice routine so you can see how I would space out some sort of a practice regimen so you cover all of the keys with all of the exercise kind of permutations for several different time spans, and also maybe several different like levels. If you're working through 3s and that's as far as you've gotten, great. We'll show how to put that across the fretboard and to break it up into manageable pieces.